This is the 2025 Volkswagen Passat. Now, this is and has been for a long time one of the most popular cars in the UK as a company car, a motorway blaster, something that's great on benefit in kind because of the hybrid options. And this new model is no different. Now, of course, you've got the ID.7, which is effectively the new modern electric version of the Passat. But this one promises to still deliver on all of the latest Volkswagen tech in a standard combustion engine package with options for both plug-in hybrid, mild hybrid and petrol, but no diesel unfortunately. So if you're after one of those, maybe look at the Skoda Superb. But I'm going to take you on a full tour of the car today and take it out on the road to let you know what I think about it. And if you're looking for a used Passat, then please check out my affiliates Players Cars Premium in the description below, where you can find the easiest way of buying a used car. You can deal with them through WhatsApp, no pesky emails, really low APR, and if they don't have what you want in stock, they can find one for you. So check them out in the link below. Let's crack on. So then, the new Passat. Now this starts here in the UK at around £40,000 for the base spec, and this one I've got here, as you can imagine, is quite a high spec R-Line model. So we'll go through all of those different bits, but I just want to go through very quickly all of the different drivetrain options. So all of them are front wheel drive, and there is no diesel like you can still get on the sister car, the Skoda Superb. So the range starts with a 1.5 ETSI mild hybrid, around 150 horsepower, 50 mpg with a 7-speed dual clutch gearbox and 9.3 seconds to 60. The one I have here today is the 2-litre turbo petrol, 201 horsepower, around 40 mpg, 7-speed DSG and 7.5 seconds to 60. You can then get two plug-in hybrid models, a 1.5 201 horsepower model or a 1.5 272 horsepower model, so 8.1 and 7.1 seconds to 60 respectively. And of course, because they're plug-in hybrid, they come with some wild figures in terms of mpg, around 760 to 790 mpg WLTP, but obviously take that with a pinch of salt. It's going to completely depend on your driving situation, but they do get an impressive claimed 78 miles of all-electric range in those plug-in hybrid models. So if you're doing a short commute to work, you can pretty much run them on electric alone. And of course, they're fantastic for business owners and business users with benefit in kind for tax purposes. So those are probably going to be the most popular models, I would say. But yep, diesel out of luck, and if you want fully electric, you need to look at the ID.7, which is a little bit more money. The entry-level spec is the Life 17-inch alloys. You get rear camera standard with IDA ChatGPT integration, 10.25-inch digital cockpit pro, which we're familiar with now in all these Volkswagen Audi Group cars. Massage seats are standard, which is interesting. I suppose they know that people spend a lot of the time on the motorway in these things. Adaptive cruise also standard, glad to hear of that. Keyless entry standard, electric tailgate. So this is the R-Line at 44,000. 18-inch alloys are standard, more sporty bumpers at the front and rear, and also the black pack, which you can see the black optics on this car. And also you get things like ambient lighting, LED matrix lights and upgraded massage seats, and also dynamic chassis control, which does make a good difference to the ride of the car. There are unfortunately some boxes you still need to tick regardless of which trim you go for. So you've got like winter pack with heated windscreen and heated rear seats for £460, graded screen and head-up displays £870, pan roof is £1,300. Tyre pressure monitoring system is not standard across any of the cars, so you need to pay £205 for that. A little bit disappointing. Driver assistance pack with 360 cam and lane assist and things like that, £635. And you can opt for the dynamic chassis control on lower trims for an additional £1,085, which I would recommend because the DCC on these is a game changer in terms of the ride refinement and comfort in comfort mode, and also stiffens it up nicely in the sportier modes. So just looking around the outside of the car here then, I do like this paint. This is Reef Blue, which is an optional metallic option. Overall, quite an understated car. On this one, of course, you do have the sportier front bumpers. As you can see, you've got all this gloss black trim down the bottom and the radar there, and you do have the light bar across the front of here with these IQ light system, which does look quite nice, and you've got the matrix LED. Some quite understated rims on this one, which is for sort of increased aero, I would imagine, and you've got the R badge on the side here. And of course, it's not a full-fledged R, but you do get some nice R trim as standard, and also you've got a front camera there integrated into the badge. I don't know if you can see that there, but it is very much your typical Passat estate affair, as you can see. Quite long, quite low, and quite a bit of space in the rear of the car. On this one, you do have the IQ light system on the rear of the car as well. You can see if I unlock the car, it does have the dynamic rear indicators as well, and a nice startup animation for the lighting and the rear light bar. Quite hard to see in this light, but it is nice. And again, you've got gloss black on this one around the bottom. So it does look a little bit of a confused design to me, because there are elements of the older VWs and there's also elements of the newer ID stuff. So it's kind of somewhere in between. But for your company rep car, blasting up and down the motorway, it's going to be understated enough for you to just cruise along. And in this trim, I do think it does at least add a bit of a sporty flair, but I would love to know what you think. In terms of like the stats of the car and the performance, I suppose those are better figures, especially the battery range, than something like a BMW 330e or a Mercedes C300e. So stepping inside the Passat then, you've got keyless entry across the board. And you do have your pretty standard Volkswagen Audi Group doors, which mean to say some nasty plastics down the bottom, but everything is quite nice up top with a little bit of lighting in the door. You've got these nice integrated door handles, and in this R-Line model you get this contrast piping and stitching, and thankfully they have 4 window switches, unlike in the ID models where you've got that horrible capacitive thing. I'm glad that this is normal. And you do have in here the ergo active seats, and these are really nice. You look at these are kind of like a bucket seat style. You've got this nice contrast to them. You've got the piping on this R-Line model. They are reasonably plush, but also firm and supportive at the same time. But you do have the massage function across the board, which is nice in a car that you might be doing lots of miles in up and down the motorway. Now, it is a bit of a shame that there's no diesel option for that purpose, but I understand why they are going with plug-in hybrid, and it does make a lot of sense for a lot of people. So let's hop in then. Again, you do kind of get some elements in here of the older Volkswagen Audi Group stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the engine on. So this one being the 2-litre turbo petrol. There's no e-hybrid in this one. This is literally just like your standard. And what you can do is just, I'm going to pop the air conditioning down there. So aircon is done on the sliders, and of course you do have like a specific climate control screen that you can go to. But you can always go home with the central button here. It's kind of a little bit like an iPad, I guess you could say. And it is the newest version of Volkswagen's interface here, and it is quite smooth and easy to use, and you can configure the home screen quite a bit. The maps are okay built in, and you've got your driving data. Up the top, you've got some shortcuts, so you can pull down and see some of the shortcuts there. And you've also got a one-touch get to your driver and assist, so you can turn off things like your speed warning, and you've also got your drive mode select, which in this case does the adaptive dampers in the DCC. So it's nice that you've got some quick control up there, and also a button to see your parking cameras and stuff like that, park assist. The cameras are not particularly wonderful definition, but thankfully there is a 360 cam. It's a shame though that this isn't up to the standard of some of the other cars in this class, but the system is pretty decent and nice to use, and of course you've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all that good stuff. It's just a shame that there's no physical climate controls. But you know, it's kind of one of those things you set and forget, in my opinion. What I am extremely glad to report is that VW listened to the customers, and they have gone back to physical buttons on the steering wheel. So you see all of your you've got volume on this one, and you also have your cruise control, and then on this side you've got heated steering wheel, and you've also got your kind of voice control, and also the buttons here that control all of the stuff that goes on this screen. So as you can see, this screen is your standard virtual cockpit, which you're used to in lots of these cars by now. There's loads and loads of different stuff that you can configure, so you can go in, you can change exactly what each side says, and you can also turn off. There's shortcut buttons here to turn off your speed warnings and stuff, which is nice too. This means you don't have to use the touchscreen. You can just go in through this button and turn off your speed warning. That's great that Volkswagen have started thinking about that. And on the right hand side, again, you can customize and configure this completely. And there you go, you also have your full maps view as well if you want to, so you can come out of here and have pretty much the full screen of maps. I like in this one especially, you do have like a nice big sunshade for this pan roof, so you can just swipe that away. So there you go, you can see that that is now opening the roof, which does open quite a fair way, and the sunshade goes all the way back, so that really adds some light to the cabin. And then you do also have this kind of suede Alcantara headliner, and those are a bit problematic. In the middle here you have cup holders, and you do have a charging spot for your phone with USB-C, engine start stop, and just your usual little cubby for the key. And then you do have a central storage area which has like a little holder in. You've got this tray which moves around, which you can kind of position where you want it to. But yeah, cup holders are good. They've got grippers in, which I always appreciate. Just central vent area with a hazard symbol. Again, it's a shame there's no physical controls there, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, I think the situation in here with some ambient lighting on the dash as well. It's not the prettiest design, but as you can see, everything is angled towards me and reachable and quite ergonomic. And I like the shape of this steering wheel as well, this sporty R-line steering wheel. The head-up display is really good in these as well. Unfortunately, this isn't the augmented reality one that's included in the newer electric Volkswagens. One thing I would say, of course, you've got the adaptive cruise as standard, but you don't have like a one-touch steering assist like you do on like Kias and Hyundais, which would be useful for a lot of motorway mile munching. So stepping into the back, you do have a large transmission hump, unfortunately, in the centre. So that's something to bear in mind. This is not going to be a practical car for a middle passenger at all. As you can see, there is also an armrest in the middle there, so you can pull that down, and a ski hatch. You do also have some cup holders, which with a kind of like a phone or iPad tray, which is nice and practical. So you can stick a screen here. It's got like a rubberized pad on it, and you do also have pockets on the back seats for your phone, which is cool. Like, there you go, you can pop that in there, so that's out of the way. As you've got two of those on each side, and also a pocket down there. And you do have some nice power delivery rear USB-C chargers, rear climate, with control for that as well, triple zone. But look at the size of that transmission hump. That is not going to be anywhere, it's nearly as high as the seat. Of course, you do have ISOFIX points, which do literally just pop out the way like that, which is a nice design, means you can't lose them, and it also won't ruin the leather on the seat. But yeah, just not the most practical rear space in comparison to something like an ID7, which of course is more expensive and fully electric, but just something to bear in mind. So I'm going to hop in. Thankfully, because of the fact that the floor is quite low, it means that I do have plenty of legroom behind myself at 6 foot. And if I turn the camera around, you can see even with this sunroof model, I still have plentiful headroom as well, and fire support isn't the worst in the world. You can see I do have some space to move around back here. Definitely not for 3 adults. It's not going to be practical for 3 adults at all, but for 2 it's going to be really comfortable on a long journey for the most part. If I was to go over to the middle here, you can see I have to straddle this seat, and now there's not much space for the passengers either side of me. Also have back here space for a bottle in the door, and also your nice peasant blockers. One feature that I do really like is that when you open the boot, the load cover retracts automatically. Look at this massive opening, completely flat load lip, which is almost unheard of in an estate car that's not battery powered. And under the floor, you do also have ample storage as well for a spare tyre that you can see in there, and also whatever other gubbins you might have to store around. And you've got some practical, you've got like a tyre hook there for the first aid kit. You've got like a little divider so you can store stuff in there, which is really good. You've then got options for, you've got like little hooks that you can pull down. You do also have a power outlet here. Unfortunately, no 3-pin back here like in some of the other cars. You also do have a tow hitch button there, and you can pull down the rear seats with these, and it goes completely flat into the most practical looking space you might imagine. So I'm just going to pull that. You see that goes down, pull the other side. They both fold down, and look at the absolutely cavernous space in here. Now this load cover does just literally pull out, or you can also pull it here to retract it, and it just clicks into place. There's no kind of fiddly system you have to move it around. You just literally pull it and then off it goes, which is really nice. Obviously you can just take that out, and you can probably get away with stowing that under here actually with the amount of space that's under there. So that's really good to have that out of the way. And let's just have a little look at how much space is back here. This is kind of like your class leading stuff in the Passat, very similar to the Skoda Superb as well. So loads and loads of area back there. In fact, I think I could probably comfortably lay down back here. So there we go, with the load cover removed. There we go. Let's just have a little lay down in here, shall we? Oh. Yeah, so I'm 6 foot, and I can quite comfortably lay down in the back here. There is absolutely cavernous amounts of space, and this is completely flat as well. So it's going to be super easy to load longer items and furniture and stuff like that. And a nice tall opening as well. So super, super practical space back here. And then when it comes to putting the rear seats back up, nice and straightforward, and thankfully, because of the design of the seat belts, they don't snag. You can, as you can see, do it super easily with one hand. So the only thing I would say then really is that a top spec one of these with all the bells and whistles is going to be nearing the 55-60 grand mark, which is really approaching some of the better electric options, if that is something that you could consider, and also more money than something like a Tesla Model Y. So out in the Passat, this one is the 2-litre turbo petrol, and it is just petrol as well, so there's no hybrid on this one, which yeah, I mean, it feels like a traditional car, but it is very smooth. The 7-speed DSG box is really good, and you can get the 6-speed DSG in the hybrid ones, which is just a slightly different setup, but this one is the most modern box they do, and although it can be a little bit hesitant at times, it is generally pretty good. All the switchgear is their slightly newer stuff, and overall I think this driving position's really nice as well. I can get exactly where I want to be. I've got places to kind of rest my elbows. I could probably get a bit lower in the seat if I wanted to rest my elbow here. I would like a bit more pad in there, but it's nice to have the physical controls on the steering wheel again. As I said before, generally quite responsive for a petrol only car, and it picks up pretty well. It's not going to knock your socks off, but yeah, it's enough to get you by. The only thing I would say is a petrol only one I don't think makes an awful lot of sense if you're going to be using this as a long distance cruiser, because yes, it will achieve sort of 40-ish mpg, but it's going to be nowhere near the efficiency or the kind of the tax benefit of the hybrid models. Especially if you're charging at home, you can get over 70 miles of electric range. That's really good. It means that most little journeys you're not going to be using any fuel at all. But it is nice they're still catering to the combustion engine market, and there are still creating new models with the newest revisions of their standard engines. Of course, we are familiar with these engines now and their responsiveness, and we're familiar with these gearboxes as well. The tech in here is definitely all improved, and I would say it's definitely more usable, but it is still a little bit fussy. You know, it's not going to be anywhere near as clean as some systems, such as, you know, your BYDs, your Teslas and those electric cars, but for a combustion engine car, it's, you know, it's pretty much what you'd expect it to be. One thing I will say is I'm continuing to be impressed by the dynamic chassis control provided in this R-Line model, which you can get on the lower models at about £1,000 extra. I would definitely recommend finding one with that, because it does make a big difference to not only the handling characteristics of the car when you put it in sport mode, but also just the overall refinement and how plush it feels when tackling day-to-day stuff. I'm going over some slightly rough terrain here, and it feels fine to me. Like, it feels quite comfortable. It's not as plush as the ID7 by a long stretch, and I can feel that even the cabin materials and the overall design is not as plush as an ID7. So that's something you need to weigh up as well, because the price bracket of this, if you get a nice spec one, you're probably looking at about 50 grand, which is kind of the entry point to an ID7, and it's more expensive than a Tesla Model 3 and about on par with a Tesla Model Y. So there's quite a lot to consider there. Yeah, this isn't going to have your dynamic handling capabilities of something like a BMW 3 Series for sure, but it's also going to be less wallowy than something like a Hyundai or Kia alternative, which granted they do have better warranties and also better tech. Especially when it comes to stuff like the blind spot cameras and things that they've started including as standard in some of their higher end trims, which still are not available here. I am impressed though with how nimble it is. The steering is quite light and does get firmed up when you put it into the sports mode, but not impractically slow, and you can't get an awful lot of feedback through the wheel, and there is a bit of steering input delay, but that's just due to the size of the car, I think. When I'm actually sitting here and looking out at the visibility, whilst there is a bit of a blind spot in the C-pillar, I could really be driving a Golf. That's how this feels to me, and I'm quite impressed by that. It really hides its size very well. Of course, all these are front wheel drive, so you don't get an awful lot of playfulness from the rear of the car. You just kind of get the car willing you to pull forward, which I don't mind. Brakes are much more responsive on this than they are on the hybrid models, and also Volkswagen's current fleet of electric cars, which I do find they're quite spongy on. In this, they do feel quite direct, very Volkswagen Golf-like. Let's plant it here. Let's use the paddles. Very responsive, not particularly engaging or satisfying, but they are very immediate, and you can put it into the sports mode on the gearbox as well, which will hang the gears for longer and give you more power immediately. I'm also very surprised at how muted this feels at low speed. It's very well insulated, but it does start to sound a bit gruff at a higher pace. It's not a particularly nice exhaust note on this petrol model. But again, when you're in the electric variant, the majority of the time when you're at low speeds, it is going either on full electric or it's going between that and the hybrid in quite a smooth fashion, thanks to the 6-speed DSG. It's always been considered a bit of a jack of all trades, this car, and it definitely still is that, especially when you've got those hybrid options that are becoming more and more compelling as time goes on. The one thing I would say though is this definitely isn't as good quality in here as in their higher end electric cars, and also the tech, although there's plenty of it, it is kind of feeling a little bit dated in a way because of some of the innovations being brought out by some of the Korean rivals. That being said though, the fact that you get massage seats as standard I think is a really nice touch, and the fact that all of the tech is pretty much included apart from some of the driver assistance features. But again, there are brands that are starting to add that into their spec without options now. But this does still feel very peppy and responsive for, it really hides its weight and its size. I can chuck it in. It feels really capable compared to you know, other cars of this size for sure, especially because it's a bit lower down. But it just, yeah, it feels almost like I'm just driving a slightly bloated Golf, which I'm super impressed with. Let's chuck it in here now, pretty hard. Yeah, I expected it to understeer like mad there, and it didn't. It really held its own. Now, for the purposes of my commute, if I had the plug-in hybrid version and I could charge at home, then I wouldn't actually be really using any fuel at all. I'd be able to drive it mostly in electric, which is a really pleasant experience. And whilst it doesn't give you the full electric car experience, it's a nice way to dip your toes in. And of course, for company car drivers, there are just so many benefits. It's not very hesitant either. I was expecting it to be a little bit hesitant, this engine, but you know, and then you add the electric motor into that as well on the hybrid, and you've actually got a pretty winning combination. Now, of course, the more upmarket German rivals, such as the Merc and the BMW, more expensive, but they are going to be nicer to sit inside. And I do think that the kind of infotainment system has become a little bit more fussy over time, but it definitely works a lot better than the previous generation, so that's a big plus. The Skoda Superb might also be a little bit easier to live with because it's very similar to this car, but you do have some more physical controls and also the option of a diesel if you want to go down that road as well. But I think for most people, the plug-in hybrid option is going to be kind of the way forward now. I think my key takeaway from the Passat is actually that it's an ideal large car for people who don't want to feel like they're driving a large car. This to me feels like driving a Golf. And that's going to be a big plus for a lot of people. And even handling wise, this doesn't feel anywhere near its size. It feels much more capable than that. And even though the steering has that typical Volkswagen Audi Group numbness to it, it is still engaging enough, in my opinion, for your day-to-day. So the answer is yes, I do still think the Passat has a place in 2025. It's mad to think that because of the fact that loads of stuff is going EV now, that something like a Passat would be considered nimble, but in terms of large cars, it really is by today's standards. And whilst it doesn't quite have the feel of a 3 Series or the pizzazz of a C-Class, I can see why this is still a compelling option. So there we go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your likes, comments, subscriptions. It means the world and it helps a great deal. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you're looking for a used one of these, please check my links in the description below. Thank you so much to Volkswagen for inviting me down to their headquarters today in Milton Keynes to check these cars out. And I'll be bringing some more of their stuff from you very soon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.